Hey everyone, and welcome back to Obas Trending Gist. Today, we are diving into a compelling clip that has sparked widespread discussion and, quite frankly, some frustration among viewers. In the spotlight, Dr. Tope Fasua, who serves as a special advisor to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on economic affairs. He recently appeared on the Arise News The Morning Show and attempted to argue that the current economic situation in Nigeria isn't as dire as it seems. In fact, he claims that Nigeria's economy is significantly larger than what is reflected in official statistics. However, this raises an important question. Does Dr. Fashua's academic arguments truly reflect the reality that ordinary Nigeria experience in their daily lives? The interviewers, Rufai Oseni and Vimbai, were diligent in pushing him for concrete answers that would resonate with the average citizen. So, let's take a moment to examine the intense dialogue that took place, especially focusing on how Dr. Fashua argues that we might be working with flawed data, while Vimbai consistently redirects the conversation to the practical implication of income on everyday Nigerians. Sit back and take a watch.
I'm going to hand over to my colleague, but as you have put it to me, I'll also put it to you that the per capita income, which is used as a global standard to measure the income of a household in Nigeria, has decreased. So,
absolutely. But that's just wait until the rebasing of the GDP. Yes, you wait for the rebasing of the GDP, and that's going to double. We're working on the wrong numbers. We can't be, pontificating on the wrong numbers and building castles on the wrong number. We ought to have rebased 6 years ago. And here we are, we're talking about 188 billion. This economy is certainly not a $188 billion economy. It's at least a $350 billion economy. So by the time we bring out the new rebased GDP, let me tell you, a simple sector, even the cattle alone, we have about 30 million cattle in Nigeria. Each cow is an average of 1 million naira. That is 30 trillion already. So are we saying that the cattle is 30 trillion out of 295 trillion economy? Just the cattle. And not to talk of the buildings in Lagos, the developments in Lekki, the free ports that are opening in this country. Go to Enugu, go to Port Harcourt and see, go to Kano. Go to Kaduna and see that this... I just shared something on my Facebook page yesterday. A Cameroonian lady who came to Nigeria. I think it's important for us to see that, perhaps we're too used to this system to appreciate the system. Perhaps foreigners will come here and tell us what we have. Just check it out. I forget her name. I think she's Victorine or something. It's on right on my page, and you go and see it. So that we look at this economy with another set of eyes.
Okay, Tope.
With respect, I think that what you've said, in theory, is open for debate. But I think that if you're speaking to the average Nigerian who may be watching this show or who is definitely impacted by the state of affairs, the level of infrastructural deficit we have in this country.
For every average Nigerian you
Just a second, if you let me finish my question. Can you just wait so I can finish my question, please?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Many Nigerians would be listening to this interview and actually be very confused with the back and forth of what you're saying. It's not very clear the point you're trying to make. So perhaps you can start with identifying your metric that tells you that Nigerians' lives are getting better. You've talked about very obscure examples. You mentioned cattle here or a medical center being built over there. If you could just break it down for us so that our audience can understand, in your opinion, which metrics show that the lives of Nigerians are improving as you say it is. And that's a different me, Dr. Fasua.
I'd actually, so the perspective I come from is that, I've given you the idea. I said, listen, we need more frequent metrics. We need more investment in our data. We need more data sovereignty, okay? That's what I'm saying, and it's a process. So, but if we sit and just bandy numbers that have come out 2-3 years ago without factoring the fact that there's been a lot of infrastructure spending that reduces clearly. So, well, yes, we take it back to the MBS and challenge them on bringing out some of these metrics. But clearly, the spending on infrastructure is a direct impact, a positive impact on the reduction of multidimensional poverty. That's my point here. So who's working on that metrics? It depends. But I've also pointed Nigerians to even some private sector platforms that are sitting on immense amount of data. We live in a data world. So enough of actually, just banding numbers that are dated. Let's move forward and let's conceptually understand what we're doing by the actions of government and by the investments of government.
During the conversation, Vimbai posed a very direct and critical question. Which metric shows that the lives of Nigerians are actually improving? This question cuts straight through a layers of data and statistics to focus on real-world impacts. Now, let's observe the second part of the conversation where Dr. Fasua responds to Vimbai and Rufai begin to challenge him on the implication of the currency devaluation. Take a watch.
Okay, Mr. Tope Fasua. Dr. Tope Fasua, you know I wear many caps, and you know I would disagree with you on many things you said here this morning. Because I also wear advisory roles relating to data companies. So I know about data sets. I have a degree in animal physiology. I know about cattle. So when you make the assumption of 30 million cattle, it's not as easy as that. You know there's something called cattle disease, you know. It's not those 1 million cattle that will get to the market size. Some will die, by the way. A lot of them will die. So it's not as hard and fast like that. Even at birth, if you have 30 million cattle, not everybody will reach that maturity stage. And the price also varies based on, you know, many factors in the markets. Maybe festive period, you might buy for over 1 million, you might buy less than that. So that's not an empirical statistics to be able to advance. Secondly, the case of the data sets, why a lot of people are agitating and they're complaining, is straight up. You and I have had this conversation in the past. You remember our anti-devaluation debates on a show we used to have on other TV channels, even before I came on Arise, where we said if you devalue a currency, you devalue the lives of the people. And if you go back historically, we talked about Germany, the Rentimarks, leading up to Hitler, lots of devaluation happening. In that score, we have devalued our currency, we have devalued the lives of the people. So the adjustment threshold that since you have devalued the currency and you have devalued the lives of people, you can't expect people to have the same level of Naira again. The 1,000 Naira you had in 2015 is not the 1,000 Naira you have today. And value has been eroded. Even if you say, okay, you bop up this economy. In fact, I would support your argument by saying the economy should work more when you factor in the informal sector and other things, But the disposable amount in people's pockets, they are not tenable. People don't have that money in the pockets. And that's why when you give that allusion to that, the fact that you can buy certain food for a certain amount, a lot of people had an uproar against you in Lekki or something in Black Belt. Because these are the arguments people are making. This administration has devalued the lives of people by devaluing the currency. And there are no empirical statistics to be able to back it up. You talk about infrastructure. Infrastructure does not directly increase the prospect of the Nigerian people. And I'll give you one clear instance. Look at rail. I'll give you a clear instance. You know, it's some infrastructure that do. The kind of infrastructure that do are what we call impact infrastructure. You know, hospitals that has to feed into the channel of healthcare delivery and improvements, schools and the likes. Look at rail. And let me give you a clear instance. How much have we been able to turn over our rail sector once we did the Lagos to Ibadan line? How much? How much in revenue does the rail make? Can you even pay back for the loans it has gotten? So these are many questions, you know, and that's why when they were doing the rail that time, I will have favored the argument around those old rail lines, refurbishing them and having them move forward. So these are the arguments we can make. And that's why me and you will still need that 1 hour to sit down and have, you know, tete-a-tete. But we also need the data.
Indeed, more than that.
Yeah.
I look forward to that. So let me answer this. So first of all, with the rail, you realize that, of course, you know that the red line that Lagos State has launched actually piggybacks on existing rail line, the existing, you know, call it the locomotive rail line that's been there, going into Ogun State and all of that. That's the same one they use. So sometimes when you start a revolutionary process like that, of course, which we must give credit to, even as far as Goodluck Jonathan, President Buhari's government, with this government continuing the policy, when you do something like that, you're actually laying a seed that can be expanded, you know, and taken abroad, much larger. almost everybody agrees, of course, the people that disagree, that perhaps the next level of infrastructure development we need in this country is the rail system. You mentioned impact investment, you mentioned health. Let me say that apart from food, shelter, the next thing human beings need is to move around. That's where transport infrastructure is very key. England remains a very top country in the world today, UK, because of its transport infrastructure, public transport infrastructure. I was still reading a lot about the London Underground and all of that just yesterday, how easy it is for people to move around. That's why England is better than most other countries in Europe. So the rail sector is key. You mentioned my claim about 1,500 people should go.
Tope Fasua, I'm so sorry to have to interrupt you while you're in the middle.
So, as we wrap up this clip, it's essential to analyze the argument presented, as there is so much here to unpack. First, it's crucial to acknowledge that Dr. Tope Fasua does make a valid point regarding the vastness of Nigeria's informal economy, which is often overlooked and underreported in official figures. Economists generally agree that it's fair to say that our economy is technically larger than the official GDP figures may indicate. However, this leads to a significant disconnect that makes such comments feel disconnected from the realities faced by average citizens. For example, you cannot realistically tell a person struggling to afford a bag of fries that they are actually richer because the total value of livestock in the country is reported to be 30 trillion naira. Such statements represent an ivory tower viewpoint that has little relevance to individuals battling to meet their daily needs. Let's break down some of Dr. Fasua's specific points one by one. First, he mentioned GDP rebasing, suggesting that if we wait for the GDP to be recalibrated, it will effectively double. While this is an appealing assertion, it poses the question, what does these statistics really mean for the average Nigerian when the economic equality is widening and their shares of that economic cake is continuously shrinking? It translates to figures that look good on paper, but do not equate to any tangible improvement in the quality of life for everyday citizens. Next, Dr. Fasua references the cattle market as a metric for prosperity, which raises eyebrow. While the livestock sector is undeniably valuable within the economy, for 99% of Nigerians, it is not a liquid asset. The reported 30 trillion naira tied up in the livestock isn't circulating in the economy to facilitate payment for transport, rent, food, or medicine. This point feels more like diversion from pressing issues of purchasing power that impact Nigerians directly. This brings us to a crucial topic, the devaluation of the naira, which Rufai was about to address. Dr. Fasua's arguments about the true size of the economy fall short when you consider that the purchasing power of money in everyday transactions has been severely diminished. For instance, your 100,000 naira from last year can now barely buy what 30,000 naira could. So even if the GDP appears to double in naira terms, it has lost significant value in dollar terms and, more importantly, in terms of what people can realistically purchase. This reality is something millions of Nigerians experience on a daily basis. Finally, Dr. Fasua mentioned that infrastructure spending can help reduce poverty over time. Yes, high-quality infrastructure is crucial for long-term development. However, it is not a quick fix for the immediate hunger and hardship that people are experiencing today. Building a new road is certainly beneficial, but if individuals lack the financial means to purchase fuel or maintain their vehicles, that infrastructure offers little to no immediacy in alleviating their economic struggle. The fundamental issue at play is the stark contrast between macroeconomics theory, which focuses on broad national statistics, and the micro reality that everyday people live. The government can provide figures and talk about growth all they want, but until the average Nigerian can truly see and feel improvement in their day-to-day life, like more affordable food, stable prices, and better access to healthcare, these arguments will only continue to evoke frustration and disbelief among the populace. At the end of the day, it feels as though we are being instructed not to believe what we see with our own eyes and the empty space in our pockets. That's my take on the discussion. What do you think? Am I being too critical, or do you agree that there is indeed a serious disconnect between the government's views and the actual realities faced by people. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, share it so more people can join in our vital conversation. And subscribe to Uba's Trending Gist for further breakdown like this. Thanks for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next one.